If I was actually president, gloves off. Oh, you don't like cigar smoke in the house? Too bad, I'm president.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Download from Tier 4 Advisors HQ here in Alpharetta, Georgia. Super excited to be joined by Paul Mazzucco, CISO at one of our best partners in the world in the data center and cloud space managed services, TierPoint. Paul, you want to say hi to the group?
Hello to the group, and thank you for having me.
Also joined by our trusty VP of Marketing, Joel Andersen. Joel, welcome to another episode of The Download.
I like that one. Trusty.
That's me, trusty. Trusty steed is what I was going to say, but I didn't. But now I did. So we got that on the podcast.
Excellent.
Good stuff. All right, fantastic. So a quick overview for Tier 4 Advisors. Started 8.5 years ago here in Atlanta, Georgia, to simplify and expedite the procurement process of data center, cloud, managed services, telecom, security projects that you might have. Not as a vendor, but as a subject matter expert who literally and figuratively sits on your side of the table. And Paul, please introduce yourself to the group.
I am Paul Mazzucco. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer for TierPoint. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And again, my name is Jake Sherrill. I'm the founder and chairman of Tier 4 Advisors. Again, a company here to simplify and expedite your procurement. We also have a sister company called Tier 4 Group. You can find them at tier4group.com, helping you with all your full-time, part-time, and contract placement needs. With that said, let's go ahead and get started with a little bit of rapid-fire Q&A for Paul, our guest. Paul, tell us about your first job. We always love hearing these stories about how people got started, but what was your first actual job?
My actual first job was working at Uncle Tony's garage when I was in high school. He had a Meineke in Somerville, New Jersey. So after school and on weekends, I would be turning wrenches, busting knuckles, and getting yelled at by a big grumpy Italian guy every time I didn't sweep the floors correctly.
That's great. And where was that exactly? Was that in the Northeast, or where were you at?
Central New Jersey, Somerville, Bridgewater area. I grew up in Branchburg. I was Jesuit educated in Bound Brook, New Jersey, St. Mary's Prep. So it was humbling and a good experience to literally work on cars and learn some humility at a young age.
Yeah, absolutely. So you went from being a mechanic and paying your dues there in Uncle Tony's shop to getting in IT. What was your transition like, and how did you get into IT there?
So my degree is actually in marketing, and the advisors had told me, if you want to understand all aspects of business, that going to school for marketing and business was going to give you sort of a step up in understanding holistically how all the different divisions of a corporation actually operate and need to be contiguous. So I ended up coming out of school and working for a contract lab. I worked for that contract lab, and we would do testing, and I was in the marketing division, and we actually made more efficient the computer systems that the company was operating. So late one night, one of the customers that we worked with in the lab was a company called Colburn Instruments. They were a behavioral testing firm and manufacturer, and I got a knock on the door, and the president of Colburn said, "You don't know me, but we're a couple houses down from each other. Our networks are down. I know you do some computers at your job. Could you come help us? We're one of your vendors." So I helped. 2 a.m, we had cables all over the floor, but They were up and running. And the owner, John Colburn, said, "Whatever you make a year, I'll give you 10 grand more." So I was like,
nice.
25 years old, and that was a significant pay bump. So I took that job, and I grew that company, and eventually I bought it.
Wow. Right. Nice. Fantastic. So that's a nice dovetail into what your greatest professional accomplishment might be. It could be that. It could be something else. What is your best professional accomplishment that you can mention?
I think, honestly, at age 38, I took my very first company to a term sheet. I grew that company. We made it very profitable. We had some patents in our industry, and we got notification from Harvard Bioscience that they were interested in getting more into the behavioral instrumentation business. And after some back and forth, I literally sold that company at age 38, and I returned about 280% to my investors. So my very first run at going public or selling to a public company actually ended up being a home run, which I think is somewhat of a unicorn.
That's a great experience. Yeah, fantastic. Congrats to you on that. Also, with accomplishments comes challenges. I mean, what's the biggest challenge you've had to overcome throughout your career, would you say?
Now, really managing up. I really hated, and I realized how much I hated working for a big corporation. I don't suffer fools well, and I tend to, growing up in the family I grew up in, and being in the garage and learning how to get humbled, we had a pretty strict rule of say what you mean and mean what you say. And I struggled quite a bit working for larger companies where people don't appreciate if you are blunt and don't appreciate if you call them out on not being honest, and if you call them out, and if you can read people and your background and you went back and learned human behavior, it just adds at times to some of those challenges. I can see through a lot of BS. I can see through a lot of people being disingenuous. And when you stop the conversation and say, it's not true, I know it's not true, why don't we start this conversation over and get to where we need to go? It puts people off, and it's a challenge. My family works on me with it, and I try and be kinder, gentler, Paul, whenever I can. But again, it has been a challenge in my career.
Well, and that might be one of those aspects that actually makes, doing what you do as a CISO makes you so successful, right? As the role of CISO has changed from, what it was 10, 15 years ago to what is a CISO, right? To 2021, where a CISO has, arguably more importance to an organization than any other chief in the house. Can you talk to me through a little bit about how that's changed and evolved over the years?
One of the things that's really changed but stayed the same is that security is a cost center. We're not a profit center. So when we look at and break down the business of security, realistically, we are not historically out there making things that you sell for a profit. We all have security services, and we all develop security offerings that clients take advantage of. But overall, the methodology behind security really used to be just keep us out of the newspaper. Now I think the role of CSO really needs to be much more business oriented. You need to really understand your holistic business infrastructure. You need to really understand how you have a seat at the table for board of director meetings. You need to understand how to not always speak in security jargon. I can't tell you how many times I'm throwing out acronyms and the whole room, I can just see them glazing over. They have no idea what I mean.
In today's world where it's a challenge not only to find the talent, but also retain the talent, what are you seeing some of your clients doing, not only with, low level, but mid-tier, and upper tier security talent? I mean, are they outsourcing everything? Are they trying to compete in the sense of having their own in-house team? Is there some sort of hybrid model that works best? What are your thoughts on that?
It is rough to retain security talent. And there's a lot of jobs out there that when I get headhunters coming to me and when I see some of the job postings, they're just not realistic. So I don't know if every new hire needs to be a unicorn. I would rather hire people who haven't gone to school for computer science or cybersecurity, because we oftentimes have to untrain them from some of the methodologies that they learned in school that are now outdated. By the time they've graduated, some of the tools they use aren't being used anymore in the workplace. So it is a struggle to retain talent, especially when kids, I'm going to call them kids, who are 25 and under, are getting job offers for $100,000 with all these check boxes of experience that realistically kids under 25 don't have and can't have. But it makes a behavioral checkbox in their head that this is what these positions are worth and these are what we should be making out there in the market. So it is difficult. We really take pride in understanding the employees and trying to give the kind of perks that we can in order to make it a more effective work environment. And my direct reports and my VPs that report up to me, I really try and nurture, be gentle. And I don't mean be gentle and hold everybody's hand, but I mean be gentle in a security standpoint. We live in a very fast-paced community for the security outlook, and we live in a very fast-paced community because threat vectors change almost by the hour, you could track. So having that understanding that we're going to burn people out very quickly. If we don't automate, we're going to burn people out very quickly. If we don't give them the kind of family time and break time that we need, we are on call all the time. And myself as the CISO, I take call on holidays to make sure that my employees, my directs, I have 19 that report up to me, I take call to make sure that they get holidays off with their families as well. So there's a human aspect to trying to be a good security officer, in my opinion. And part of that is keeping the talent by letting them know that they're appreciated and doing our very best to not just dangle an extra salary in front of them, but to dangle a lifestyle that we can hopefully afford them.
How do you and TierPoint continue to, put those types of metrics out in front of the folks that work for you and keep them engaged, keep them mentally stimulated, and retain them?
We genuinely rotate people through other programs in order to make sure that they're a little bit more well-rounded and understand the business. So I take my developers and have them work with internal IT, and we take internal IT folks and we can help train them on the security posture and the security levels and layers that we're looking for. And because I have security and compliance that report up to me, we try and schedule projects so that there's a proper amount of overlap and we don't have people that are just heads down writing reports and checking boxes every day. I don't think I could survive that kind of experience or environment for very long. So again, there's work that needs to be done. I need to answer for my budget, and I need to make sure that we stay out of the newspaper in all ways possible, but we do try and engage. And also we try and engage with, here's some perks that we're going to give you. You need a lab set up at your house in order to test security tools? I'm going to provide it for you. Do you need an additional laptop just for learning how to hack and looking at controlled environments? We're going to provide it for you. We do Amazon gift cards. We do monthly recognitions. Again, no company and no leader are perfect, but we really try and keep the employees engaged and give them all the access to training, tools, the things that they need in order to better their career. My hope is to grow them to the point where they can leave, but they don't, because we've provided a decent experience for them as employees.
Absolutely. And TierPoint being the known quantity, the known brand that it is, tell us a little bit about TierPoint as a company and some of the services that you offer to customers from a security compliance perspective.
So we have roughly 3,500, maybe 4,000 clients. And from a security standpoint, we have it broken down into two layers. Myself and my team, we certainly assist with productization and looking at the kind of products that we offer to our clients, but we're generally responsible for what we call the built-in security of TierPoint. And there's layers that we have, and we think they're industry leading, that make us stand out from a very crowded data center market. Our DDoS, denial of service infrastructure. We have spent millions protecting our edge infrastructures and understanding the traffic flows and the behavioral training around our entire data infrastructure. We've protected against, between layer 7 and volumetric flood attacks, roughly 200 to 300,000 attacks a month that we're fielding across our infrastructure. And we provide that level of security for free. If you're a TierPoint customer, you're getting the benefits of those security layers. On top of that, we've grown our compliance layers, and we're not just, I know compliance is, everybody has to check the boxes, but we try and breathe it a little bit differently. So TierPoint as a corporation, we maybe charge 500 credit cards a month, maybe 500 a year. Almost nobody pays us with credit cards. But every one of our data centers is PCI DSS level 1 certified. Why? Not because we need it, but because it shows that we have the controls, the discipline, and all of the security layers in place in order for clients who need to have payment card industry checkboxes and HIPAA high trust. And we're finishing up our ISO 27001 certification across our data centers. We put these in place and actually breathe them in order to showcase that it's not just a checkbox for us. We actually live and breathe, making sure that this infrastructure is as secure as possible, and clients get to take advantage of that. We have about 2,000 clients a year that come through my office that need our certification and proof of our testing and security layers, or we actually help them. We hold their hands, and if PCI DSS is 450 questions, we're probably answering 350 on your behalf, just by virtue of you being in my infrastructure. So we can offer quite a value add for clients who really need to not just be secure, but to get those compliances for their business infrastructure. We have a lot of clients, we get a lot of thank you letters for helping make sure that their infrastructures are not only secure, but that we give that value.
When you talk about best practices for enterprise security, give me an idea, kind of introductory, what that means. What are your thoughts? I mean, if some of the conversations you're having, some of the things you've seen.
One of the things I really push for people to learn, and I say it, and it sounds bad to say it, but I don't mean it to be bad. I just mean it to be realistic, is I tell my team and I tell people who come to me for advice is to master the concepts of security. Don't just rely on tools. And I get probably 50 invites on LinkedIn a week to, can I just have 30 minutes on your calendar? Can I get an hour to give you a demo? Is this something, if I said yes to every LinkedIn request, my entire job with overtime would be watching product demos. And
you'd work 100 hours a week just doing that.
Yeah, just doing, and not that they're not the best security company. They may be the best thing since sliced bread, but all of them are tools. Yeah. And if you look at what a proper defense in depth model or zero trust model is going to need, what it really needs is for security leaders, and whether that be somebody who got hired yesterday who's going to work up the ranks, or a CISO, is understand the concepts of security, understand how the systems conceptually intertwine, understand how many admins are going to break a system because people are a weak link, understand how many users are going to click on emails, and anticipate that you're going to get. I think the national average is 27%. TierPoint is below that, but we're not zero. So understand the human element, which is where I think my background in human behavior really plays in. Pushing, understand the concepts, really automate and understand to the best of your ability the low-level work.
It's interesting you brought up all the emails and LinkedIn messages and things that you get as a CISO for a vendor, right? And how many of these companies are reaching out to you wanting to do a demo and things like that. Just another shameless plug though, but Tier 4 Advisors, that is why I founded the company, right? And so we have a lot of people tuning into this podcast. They were also receiving those same amounts of emails and messages. Again, that is why Tier 4 is here. And, with a net promoter score of a 97, it speaks to who our people are and what our culture is and the time and stress that we save for a lot of people. So thanks for bringing that up. It was a good segue, into, again, reminding our audience, what we're here for.
Well, so one question that I want to ask, Paul, is just the overall business of security. Having the frame, or I guess the mindset of an IT leader or a CISO, to understand more. I mean, coming with your background, buying, or I guess starting a company, selling a company, you understand the full facets, the ins and outs of running a business. How does an IT leader shift from just strictly focusing on IT support for the business and thinking of it from a more macro level of, the overall business of security?
All of the layers and all the things that we try and teach and that I had to learn and that I really preach to people who are coming up who want to be in this business is learn how to talk the language of business and show how your group, again, we're a cost center, but show how that cost center has ancillary benefits. Understand that we can't deliver services to a client without having a secure infrastructure in order for that data to traverse. Understand that if we have a data breach, that clients lose trust. So encryption in transit, encryption at rest, all of the layers that many people would come back and say, again, these are table stakes. We really, really rely on making the channel understand, here's the security layers and here's how you talk up. And we rely on the channel, and I know you are the channel. The channel represents a large portion of our business. And having the trust to have open dialogue, and that's from the single IT person, whatever you consider your channel, all the way up to TierPoint, whatever we consider our channel, having the ability to sit down and have the conversations about, here's where our lines of demarcation are, here's where this begins and ends, and here's the guarantees I give you in order for you to go out and bring clients to me, and here's what I'm learning from you as our trusted advisors. Every person that comes into my office or every person that I interact with from a business standpoint should be my teacher. And I should have the discipline to step back and say, what do you know that's different than me? Because I'm going to share everything I know to an extent that I can. I'm going to share everything that I can to make you better at security. But I expect back from you that you're going to share everything you can to let me understand how the channel works. Let me understand how we're value adds for each other. And this goes to the business of security. Again, it's not just understanding tools and it's not just plugging a tool in. we go to the groups in order to say, you specialize in this, make me better. And if you make me better and we learn from each other, I'm now a better foundation for you to go out and have a level of security on behalf of your clients going forward.
With that said, obviously you work for a vendor in TierPoint, but what are you seeing? What are some of the conversations you've had with folks that, again, they've been in IT 20 plus years. They had maybe a similar opinion to that 5, 8, 10 years ago, but they've also realized what it is today and the value of not only having, a partner in you that has a team of folks that can come in and do security and compliance meetings and conversations and trainings, but also on the back end, like, the safety, the security, the compliance of actually outsourcing compute, maybe do a public hyperscaler or a virtual public, virtual private, dedicated private cloud instance.
We spend a lot of time trying to get people over the emotional hurdles of moving their data. I'll fall back on my behavioral training. The biggest human fear is the fear of the unknown. And you can talk to 1,000 people, and people have had horrible experiences that have given them phobias and fears of other things. But when you really boil it down, it's the fear of the unknown. And being able to go into that closet on the 14th floor and hug your server at least gives you a sense of what you can control. You're not really controlling hackers. You're not really segregating your data any better than any cloud service provider. In fact, I would argue cloud service providers and virtual private hosting and virtual cloud, private cloud, whatever you want to label it, they're probably going to do a much better job because they have the tools, they have the know-how, they have the layers in place to get you to a much better steady state. And it's one throat to choke. But really, when I get brought into a sales call, what I'm selling is an insurance policy in some ways. And it's a difficult sell because, again, the human fear is the fear of the unknown. Most companies have not had a massive data breach. And those who have, certainly we get a call and it's a different discussion. Then I'm brought in to help educate and showcase how we can keep this from happening again. But a lot of the SMB market, they haven't suffered that large data breach. So to come in and say, you're going to pay me extra, so you're not in the business of being a data center, it's difficult, again, like a life insurance policy, or, when something happens, the phones start ringing. When there's a break-in in a neighborhood, people start buying home security systems. But until some event happens, it's not an easy sell. And again, selling that insurance policy is different, and people do want to touch and control to the best of their ability. Well, back in the 80s, you couldn't get fired for buying IBM.
Right.
Think about that mentality today. It doesn't exist. There's a lot of cloud providers, and all of them are very good at security, very good at compliances. In fact, they've taken away the human element, which makes them even more successful. You don't have to worry about understanding PCI. There's not a ton of PCI experts in every single company. So when you click the PCI box, companies like TierPoint can now launch, here's the layers of controls. Here's 12 controls for PCI, and we're going to do 12 of them to this line of demarcation. So now all we have to do really is do this much. So if you're looking in your closet, you're responsible for all of these NIST 800 controls, and good luck getting all of them done and getting all those checkboxes done efficiently in a tiny company. But by coming to here, working with the channel, you now understand, or should understand very clearly, all of these things have been done and presented to you in this fashion, and here's the cost for it. Now you can concentrate on the business of your business.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Let's go ahead and wrap back around and talk about the best thing that we saw all week. Joel, you want to get us started?
So the Mecum auto auction is happening right now.
Yeah, very good.
I was, doing some work in the evening, and I just, was flipping through the channels, and I was like, oh, I'll tune in and see, what some cool cars are, that are going through an auction. These two, I want to say older, they're these 65 and older, let's say, ladies were sitting in the front row, masks on and everything, and they were bidding on like all these like late 60s, early 70s muscle cars, and they were winning a couple. They won a couple of them. I was loving it, and they're like high-fiving each other. They're super pumped. It just made me happy to see these two ladies living and enjoying their life and buying some very unique cars.
Camaros, Mustangs, Novas.
Yeah, all these just like beautiful muscle cars. It made me laugh.
Wouldn't you love to have that backstory and know what they're actually doing with those cars?
They buy them for themselves, or they, for family members, or why they identify with such a specific type vehicle. But it was fun to see.
That's great. That I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah.
Paul, how about yourself? Best thing you saw all week? Anything stand out to you?
Something did. I don't know if it's 100% validated yet, but the hacker forums are starting to report that the dark side hacking consortium that was responsible for Colonial Pipeline actually, in some ways, it looks ceased operations. Now, whether they've truly ceased operations or this was a way for them to grab and stash some money and get out of town, I don't know. I haven't. I don't work on that case, but it appears that there's been some sort of change of heart, and their bitcoins were seized and the web servers were seized, and the only notification given is that they're cooperating, or the hosting company and the wallet companies are cooperating with law enforcement. So if they really got shut down, they're certainly going to come up again as a new name and under a new function. But that would be a pretty significant blow to the ransomware consortiums and the agent for hire type model, where you control the software and the coins and the servers, and you have agents out there in the field acting on your behalf. That might be a big disruptor. And if it's true, if they really are out of business for the time being, and if I read the article correctly, they're going to provide decryption keys for companies in flight that hadn't made a decision yet whether they were going to decrypt or not. That was great to see this week.
At the end of the day, the best thing I saw all week, candidly, was just hearing that fuel was flowing through the pipeline again. That to me was exciting. I think we're still probably a week or two away from some sort of normalcy at the pumps. Luckily it was a relatively small pipeline compared to a power grid, or compared to a lot of other things. I don't want to say all the stuff and give ideas out there, but there's a lot of different areas that we could definitely improve, not only as a country, but candidly as a worldwide. Paul, anything else that you're hearing about the Colonial Pipeline, by the way, just since we brought it up? I mean, are you under the impression that some of this stuff could be fixed with some sort of federal government oversight? I mean, when you think about what the government does from a military standpoint, keeping us safe and other things, at least on a broad scale, is there anything within IT security compliance that larger entities, again, federal government comes to mind, could be or should be doing, or is that just more government oversight and Big Brother?
It's a balance. It certainly will be seen as government oversight and Big Brother, but some of the government layers, FISMA, FISCAM, all the way up to FedRAMP, depending on how the service is delivered, they really have a good baseline and a really good roadmap for checks and balances for your security layers. And if you look at the ability to keep out so many attacks because you're just patching your infrastructure, if you look at managing your firewalls properly and having proper ACLs in place and doing fundamentals, I think we're going to see the government start to push back pretty hard on anything that it considers an infrastructure play, which would include fuel, which will include water and electricity, and anything they would consider a utility. I think we're going to start seeing some really strong pushback on, you have to have your house in order. And if you don't have your house in order, the government's going to put your house in order, and they're going to siphon off your money for these private companies that play in the public sector. Is the internet going to be made a utility? And if it is made a utility, does that open up some functionality for better management, better edge protection, some layers being in place that would disallow some of the attacks and some of the hacking that we see now? I don't know if that will come to fruition or if it's really even feasible in a country our size with this many pops and this many providers. But I think that the same level of discipline and the same thing we're going to see the government push to other utilities, we're going to see within the internet.
Yeah. And that's the point that we bring up, right? It's not a matter of if, or more so a matter of when. And then also on top of that, unfortunately, is to your point, is there anything that's secure or private, really, anyways? The hope is that obviously some of the utilities, some of the things that not necessarily just patient data and healthcare, but more so the controls of whether or not your power grid is going to be working tomorrow or not, or is fuel going to be shipped or not. Stuff like that is definitely one of those things that it might need to be might need to be looked at a different lens from a federal level. But with that said, it's been great talking with you, Paul. We greatly appreciate your time. We're going to go ahead at the end here and spin our wheel of chance. We have a bunch of questions, so it's kind of fun. We're going to ask Joel to spin that, and then we'll ask you a question to tie this up.
Here we go.
Can I win a new Xbox? Is it something cool?
Yes,
The
an
PS6.
Xbox. Oh, PS6.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff.
13.
13. All right. How do you like your coffee?
I like my coffee to taste like coffee. I'm that guy who actually, little bit of sugar, a little bit of cream. Growing up in the Sicilian matriarchal household, my great-grandmother, she was with me till I was 14. So she would make what we would now classify as basically Cuban coffee, half a cup of sugar and a little bit of coffee and milk on top of it. So now that I'm older, my insulin doesn't want to keep up with that level. So, but I grew up with a sweet coffee. So I like my coffee with a little bit of cream, a little bit of sugar, and I'm a happy guy.
Good stuff. And you got a couple folks up here that don't necessarily drink coffee. So I'm going to go ahead and pivot on this one real quick. If you were the president of the United States,
Whoa.
okay, from coffee to president,
What?
your first resolution if you were the president. Paul, by the way, we're going to come to you after I answer that one. So get ready because I'm going to give you a second question on that one. But first resolution that you're president right now, what is it?
We are making everything in round numbers for sale. No more like 482, 725. Like, I want to get rid of change. I don't want coins in my pocket. I don't want them in my car. I want everything to just be like whole numbers so I can just exchange cash for the exact dollar amount.
No more coins?
I hate them. I hate them.
No more coins ever.
For me. Well, and I guess for the rest of the nation.
And
but I want coins gone.
When you're swiping the credit card, that doesn't even matter.
Nope, doesn't matter.
Or the debit card, or whatever.
But as someone who likes to carry around cash and does a lot of like cash transactions at grocery store or whatnot, I just or at the gas station, I just hate getting change back and then having to put it in my pocket and then find a place for it. And I am banning and getting rid of all coins.
All right. Paul, actually, I'm going to come to
Executive
you real
order.
quick. What is your first resolution as President of the United States? You are president within the next hour. What's your first resolution that you're coming up with?
There's probably a lot of important things, but honestly, my very first resolution would be that I could smoke cigars in the basement of the White House without my wife yelling at me. I got to go outside during the winter. It's cold. It's unhappy. If I was actually president, gloves off. Oh, you don't like cigar smoke in the house? Too bad, I'm president.
I like that. No, that's great. Both of you have really good ideas. Mine is going to involve traffic and pace of driving on the freeway. You ever been over to Germany on the Autobahn? Right? A couple other places, you don't really have to worry about the speed limit. I'm not for the guy driving with his landscaping trailer in the fast lane at 90 miles an hour. That's not what I'm saying. However, I am going to say this. I do believe that the speed limit of 55 miles an hour on an interstate out in the middle of nowhere is insulting. Okay? That's insulting. 55 miles an hour is insulting on an interstate out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm not saying I want people driving, 180 miles an hour, but I also think that there's a pace of play, using a golf term, that we all could probably heed to in the year of 2021. I think a lot of these speed limits were probably established back in the day, but nowadays the minivans, the SUVs, the other automobiles, the Teslas, if you will, I think can travel at a pretty safe rate of speed, assuming that the rest of the drivers understand the rules, like the Autobahn, of get the heck out of the way, right? And be smart in that regard. But that would be my first resolution this afternoon as President of the United States of America.
Literally this afternoon, you would do it that fast? You're that
I would do it that fast because the pace of play for me, Paul, is aggravating.
So, good stuff. Joel, let's wrap this thing up. Got some really exciting, COVID-friendly, responsible VIP events coming up.
That's right. So this week, May 26th, Atlanta National in Dallas, May 28th. We are at the Dallas Cowboys Golf Club. June 4th, back here in Atlanta at the Etowah Valley Clay Shooting there in Dawsonville, Georgia. And then June 11th, Gaylord Springs Golf Course in Nashville, Tennessee. If you'd like to join us, tier4advisors.com/events. or IT leaders and business leaders in those specific markets, Dallas, Atlanta, Nashville. Love to have you join us.
Really exciting. I mean, a year and a couple months later, being able to get out, play some golf, do some social distancing while also meeting some folks, and enjoying yourself outside of the house or outside of the office. Hopefully you take advantage of what it is that we're doing there.
And I will say this, we have some really great things cooking for Q3 and Q4, so stay tuned for that as well. They're going to be fun.
Yeah. Hopefully we're behind the wheel of something, driving fast. We've done some driving events. What is it? Probably our 8th annual continental pheasant hunt coming up as well. Likely some other stuff. So Paul, maybe we can have you out at one of our Tier 4 and TierPoint VIP events one of these days.
I would love that. I'll shake hands and cut cigars for everybody.
That'd be great. Good stuff. Well, Paul, we couldn't thank you enough. To the TierPoint team as well, thank you for being one of our best partners in the world in the Tier 4 Advisors database. Joel, thank you as always. Everybody have a great rest of the week, and we will catch you on the flip side with the next episode of The Download. Take care.